Y'all, let me tell you that these Army Hammer charmies are after me on Twitter. Okay. So let me just tell you a story. I am minding my own business on Twitter, doing my thing, just trying to brighten up people's day. And all of a sudden I start getting all these messages. I'll put a screenshot in there. But basically what happened was I was watching Army Hammer. He did an interview with Bill Maher on his little podcast show. Last week I watched Army Hammer do an interview with Piers Morgan on his show on YouTube as well. And I tweeted about it then, and I started tweeting about the interview that I saw with Bill Maher, and there were contradictory things. So on my Twitter, I was just like, Army Hammer is lying. Then all of a sudden, all these charmies came out of nowhere and started like messaging me, telling me what a horrible bad person I am, blah blah blah. He's innocent. You need to look at this video and that video and blah 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 blah. I'm like, I ain't looking at nothing no more. So what I actually did, I looked at this interview because Bill Maher had talked about it in his interview with Army Hammer, and they were talking about this piece that was done on Air something, some online magazine or whatever. So I was like, let me look at that. So I've done that. And then after that, I started looking at the House of Hammer documentary because Bill Maher had mentioned that as well. And Bill Maher was just like, the documentary they didn't get the whole story. It just got the woman's story, didn't get the other side. But then the article gave more information, but still didn't have everything that was there. But still, Army wasn't answering any questions. So this video, because all those charmies were in my comment section defending Army, I swear to God, they are crazy. They are insane. They will fight for Army Hammer till his death. And I didn't believe it because when I watched the documentary, at the end of it, they started talking about these charmies that will go after people. The charmies will go after people. But I'm here. I'm fighting. You ain't coming after me. I'm telling the whole story, everything that I saw in the documentary. So I'm going to do this video about the documentary. It was a 3-part documentary that actually came out, I believe, last year. And then I'll do another video regarding the article that I saw. And then I might do another video about everything else that I saw because this is insane. I'm going to give my opinion of it at a later time. So I'm going to start with episode 1 of the documentary. So we start out with the documentary. We are with Courtney. What's her last name? Vovekashesh. Her name is Courtney. We're gonna call her Courtney. Some Polish last name. I don't know what it is. But we're starting with Courtney. Courtney introduces herself. I'll put a picture up. Courtney introduces herself. She says that she is a business owner in Dallas. She's into fashion. And she starts off by saying that she was fully controlled by Armie Hammer. She basically said, you are his completely. So her story starts off, she meets Armie Hammer in the winter of 2019. So they meet at a bar in Dallas. Her friends are telling her, hey, you know who that is over there? Because it was some guy over there in the bar. That's Armie Hammer from the movie, The Social Network, about Mark Zuckerberg. So Armie Hammer played 2 characters, 2 twins that were involved with Mark Zuckerberg in the movie and stuff like that. And that was basically his launching pad into his career. Now, let me tell you, I didn't even know that Armie Hammer was in The Social Network. I didn't know who he was. I have heard about Armie Hammer, and Armie Hammer basically came up on my radar when I saw the movie. Oh my gosh. I saw the movie Call Me by Your Name. And if you will remember, if you guys are into hip hop or whatever, Lil Nas X, he did I think an album or a song called Call Me by Your Name. And he said he did take the inspiration from that movie. Let me tell you, I was so in love with that movie. I watched that movie one night and I was bawling, crying, because basically it's a love story. I think it happened in the 70s. It's supposed to be based in the 70s, but Armie Hammer is playing should I even go into it? Armie Hammer is playing this grad student that is basically doing work for a professor, and the professor has this son, this teenage son. I think he's about 16, 17 years old. Armie Hammer is about, I guess, 22, 23, maybe 24 in the movie, but they start an affair, but they can't really be open with it because, it's the 70s and they're two gay men, or a man and basically a teenager. So that's where the sticky thing comes in. But I like the movie. We're not going to go into all the specifics of it, but I love the movie. But anyway, so going back to Courtney, she basically meets Armie Hammer 2019 at a bar. They say they briefly talk. They just pass each other by, have brief conversation. The next morning, she wakes up and he has followed her on Instagram. Then in March 2020, that's when COVID happens. Everything gets locked down, right? So in June, so March goes by, March, April, May, June. June comes, and then Armie sends her a text message like, hey, what's up? And she's like, oh, hey, how you doing? You know what I'm saying? And so then they start chatting, blah, 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 this and that. She Googles him. She sees that he is married, sees he is with children, looks at his Instagram profile, sees that he is married. He has pictures of himself, his wife, his kids, family photos, whatnot, all on his Instagram page. So she was like, what's up? You're married. What's going on with that? So he's like, no. He said, yes, I am married, but we are separated. We're separated. We've been separated for going on 2 years now. I live in Los Angeles. I believe she lives in New York. He told her we don't even really talk to each other. And so Courtney is saying that she believes all this stuff because, they're on the phone all the time together. They're text messaging each other all the time. Sometimes they go to sleep on the phone together like every night. So they're in constant communication. So she's figuring, okay, he's telling the truth. They're not together. So she's talking about how they share childhood experiences, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. They basically trauma bonded off of their trauma from their childhood. So they're talking, they're getting to know each other, all this stuff like that. And Armie calls her up one day, is like, hey, girl. He's like, I am going to be driving from LA to, I don't know where he was going, to some other state. But through the drive, he was going to pass by Texas, where she stayed. And she's like, but hold up, I would love to see you, whatnot. But me and my friends, we're taking a trip to the Hamptons. We're going to the Hamptons, right? And so she said that he got all pissed off, and he was like, oh, he's so frustrated because he's not going to be able to see her. So she's on her trip to the Hamptons, and her phone is blowing up, and it's him phone. She finally gets to the text messages, and she sees a picture of her high-rise apartment, and she's just like, what are you doing there? You need to leave. And he's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. He's like, I'm trying to pick up your scent. And she's like, that's weird. What are you talking about? So anyway, she's just like, this is really kind of weird, kind of creepy or whatever. So he was like, I'm going into your apartment. You can't stop me. So I guess he goes into the apartment. When she gets back from the Hamptons, she sees there is a note on her door. She's like, oh, this is so sweet, a nice little love note. But on the note, it said, I'm going to bite the fuck out of you. And she's like, this is so weird. But she says, I didn't really think anything of it because, just like he's so enamored with me. Maybe he was just missing me. And it's just words. It's just words. But she didn't tell anybody. She didn't tell any of her friends about all that, even though she thought it was weird. So she just basically says, I just thought that he just wanted to be more intimate with me. That's where the biting came in. So that happens. Not too long afterwards, Armie breaks up with his wife, right? So after he breaks up with his wife, he like for real breaks up. It all comes out in the papers. Him and his wife release a joint statement talking about it's not going to work out, but we're still friends. Is that a car? A car? They need to shut up. Hold on. This is so annoying. So of course the honking stops after I close the glass sliding door. But anyway, after they break up, and the official reports have come out, she decides that she wants to go to LA. Courtney decides that she wants to go to LA and she is going to visit a friend. But after her and her friend have lunch together, dinner together, she was going to see him. They made plans to meet up. When they first saw each other, the first thing they did was kiss each other on the lips. And they were just like, oh my gosh. But it was just so comfortable. They were so in love, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. So she said after they first met, they spent the entire day together. And then day after day after day together, they took a road trip together. They went to Armie's friend's motel that he was renovating. They're spending their day like a couple. They're going moped riding, all this other blah, 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 all this other stuff. So, of course, they probably slept together. So while they're there, Armie decides that he wants to go to this Tractor Supply to look for ropes. And obviously he told her what the ropes were for because she was saying that she didn't feel comfortable. And she said, fortunately, there were no ropes at the Tractor Supply place. And he saw that how uncomfortable it made her feel. So he kind of backed off and stuff like that. But Courtney said that he was still grooming her, basically. So they watched this movie, The Secretary, with what's her name? Jake Gyllenhaal's sister, whatever her name is. And in The Secretary, I've never seen the movie, but the secretary was basically the submissive for her boss and had to do all kinds of stuff. And he's looking at her like, wouldn't this be great? Armie's looking at Courtney like, wouldn't this be great? And then soon afterwards, she talks about how he does some degrading stuff to her that she didn't want to talk about because it was so traumatizing. So she also talks about how Armie wanted her to be exclusive with him, or she was basically exclusive with him because he was taking up so much of her time. But then she finds out that he is not exclusive with her. Right? Because when she gets back to Texas, all of a sudden there's all these reports of how he's going out with Rumor Willis, Bruce Willis's daughter, right? They're hugging and stuff. He's got his hand on her butt, but she's calling him like, hey, what's up with this? And he's just like, well, this is nothing. It's just nothing. That nothing means nothing about nothing, right? So Courtney goes back to LA after a while. And then that's when she decides that she wants to break up with Armie. And Armie is just like, no, I don't want this to happen. We need to be together, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. So she's just like, no, I hope you find somebody that works for you, all this stuff like that. So she decides to go out with her friend in LA. They go somewhere. Wherever they went, Armie showed up the next day where they were, because you know why? He was basically tracking her phone and knew exactly where she was at. Red flag. Well, I mean, flag, but another red flag. And so she decides, okay, that's kind of romantic that he wants to come and get me. He must really love me. So she falls back into the trap, right? So they go on another road trip, but this road trip, it's tense. It doesn't feel right, she says. And then she said, while they were on this road trip, they go to this bar. He's getting drunk, taking drink after drink, shot after shot after shot. He's getting drunk as hell, pissy drunk, right? She just had like one margarita. They go back to their little hotel room and stuff, and he starts doing stuff to her, right? Ties her up, all this stuff like that. She said the next day she had bruises. She just didn't feel comfortable. He was doing things to her. She didn't say that, she didn't tell him to stop, but she said everything but stop, or that she didn't want to do it. She kept on giving excuses like, I don't feel good, I'm sick, right? So then I think at one point in time, he bit her. Right? She said he bit her, and she said she had this big bite mark on her shoulder, right? This bite mark on the shoulder, and they showed the bite mark. They took a picture of it, showed the bite mark on her shoulder on the documentary. Then I find out afterwards, because after I've already read these articles, right? We find out that this picture ain't even her. It is from somebody's Pinterest, and it's actually a tattoo. It's not a bite mark. And if you look at it, really close, because I'm looking at it right now, you can see the smearing of the ink. It's not even a real bite mark. So, like, who did this? Right? Somebody lying. It's some lions. It's some lions going on, right? Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. So basically, with the relationship, she felt like she took away her full autonomy for his pleasure. It was not pleasurable for her. And after this incident happened, 2 days later, he's just like, hey, come and meet my mom. Hey, we're going to make everything better and you can meet my mommy, right? So after Courtney's story, we go on to Ryan. He's some dude that worked with Armie, I guess, years ago at some acting class. He talks about Armie's rise to stardom. His part of the documentary was really unnecessary. But he does talk about Armand Hammer. Armand Hammer is Armie Hammer's great grandfather. And his great grandfather, who he was named after, he's the namesake, was a world leading capitalist. He was owner of some company called Occidental Oil, things of that nature. So Armie, we go into the backstory of Armie. Armie was born in Santa Monica, California, which is not too far away from me, probably about 5-minute drive away from me. But when he was young, his father, whose name is Michael Hammer, he decided that he wanted to move this family to the Cayman Islands. They lived in the Cayman Islands I don't even know where the Cayman Islands is. They lived in the Cayman Islands for a few years, and the Armie finally came back to California. And then that's when he decided that he wanted to pursue acting. So Armie, he never graduated high school. He decided to drop out to pursue his acting career. As far as his family is very well known, supposed to be very wealthy, generational wealth. Like when I'm out, if you go, where is it? Down Wilshire, you can see the Hammer Museum, which is there. I've never been in the Hammer Museum, but once you drive down Wilshire, what is it? When you go into Westlake, that's when you see all the Hammer signs. It's like all down in Westlake. So they talk about Armie, how his career got started with The Social Network. He's had bomb movies like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. that he had done, The Long Ranger. There is a guy who interviewed Armie Hammer when he was up and coming. And I guess it's like a known secret that everybody in Hollywood knows that Armie is they said, quote, he has edgy interest in BDSM. But Armie would not talk about it in the interview with this reporter that was talking. He was like, I am not talking about that, right? So they introduce another lady called Julia. Now, Julia, I don't even know why she was in the documentary because she didn't give any more information. She was just some chick. She was an artist, writer, lived in New York. I think she's bi-coastal, New York and LA. Oh, this is what I want to tell about Julia's ass, right? So she does artistry about toxic relationships. She takes photographs, has her photos on her Instagram page. And Armie actually messaged her. He DM'd her on Instagram and was like, what's going on with you? So basically, I think Armie is using Instagram as a dating site, right? So they start talking in the DMs and he invites her to go see a play. And so she's like, cool, we can do this. But around that same time, that's when COVID happened. That's basically when COVID happened. So I guess he was talking to these women at the same time. COVID happened. They never got to go to the play. So they're still talking on the phone. And she is saying that, this seems kind of weird because the conversation started getting sexual. And her friends are telling her like, hey, well, it's COVID time. A whole bunch of people, they're doing this COVID dating online, just doing dates online, phone X online, things of that nature. Just roll with it. Just go with it, right? So they start talking about stuff. Things get sexual. And she said once things started getting sexual, that's all Armie wanted to talk about. So he starts telling her about his fantasies, right? About how he wants to tie somebody up so they can prove their love, and basically he can do whatever he wants to do with them. She brings up talking about ex-slaves. She brought it up. They showed the text messages, right? And he starts talking about Japanese bondage ropes and things of that nature. And so one of the things that he said, I'll put it up. He was like, you don't think or worry about anything except being a good little pet. He's telling her, be a good little pet. My own personal little slave. He said, in return, you will be worshiped, fed, and effed. And so she likes the message. Put a little heart, double tap, heart, right? But then she was just like, I hearted the message, but just the heart, it doesn't mean anything. That's just, it just shows that you're engaged in the conversation. If you're engaged in the conversation, then just be engaged in the conversation. Double tapping is not engaging in the conversation. But whatever, okay. So whatever, is because the way that I feel is it wasn't just like all one-sided. She's bringing up slaves and things of that nature, and he's talking about being a good little pet, and you hearting it. If you did not, you cannot trick me. You cannot trick me.
You cannot trick me. You cannot trick me.
If you felt uncomfortable with that, right, I would not respond, or you can just say that I don't really feel comfortable with that, or try to change the conversation, right? I don't understand this hearting thing, but it didn't mean anything. So she Googled him too, right? So she knew that he had a family, he had a wife, he had kids. And she was just like, well, if he got a wife and kids, I know I'm not the only one that he's doing this with. So this girl knew he had a wife and kids too, right? Okay. All right. This girl's name was Julia. Okay. Now, the next part of the documentary, we get into Candace. Candace, she ain't part of this. She is not part of this. She is just a little person on the internet, logging on to Facebook, logging on to Instagram. She got like 300 followers. She ain't really nobody. I don't even know why she was in this either. But Candace, she saw this. She logged into IG. She saw House of Effie. Let me tell you, House of Effie saw one of my posts about Armie Hammer on Twitter, and House of Effie basically was commenting on my stuff too. I was like, okay, girl, right. So anyway, when this Candace, when she logs on to Instagram one day, she sees House of Effie, and Effie is releasing all the text messages between her and Armie, right? So Effie is a third girl we ain't even heard of yet, but we got to know her with all these text messages that she is releasing. And basically he's talking about R-ing her, and basically he says, from the interviews that I've seen, he says that this was supposed to be a scene. They agreed upon it. They met at a coffee shop. They talked about it and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into let me get into what I saw in the interview. So basically in the interview, Armie says that they agreed upon things. He said in these relationships, there are certain safe words that you can say. If you're not comfortable doing something, you can say the safe word and the dominant person will stop. But in some of these text messages, no safe word was established. So if somebody is feeling uncomfortable and they're crying out, and this is supposed to be an R scene, a grape scene that you guys planned out together, and you're not feeling comfortable, and in a grape scene, basically the person is supposed to be resisting, crying, yelling, things of that nature. So if you really don't want to do something and you're resisting and you're crying and you're doing these things saying that you don't want to do it and telling this person to stop, they're not probably going to stop unless you have a safe word. From what I hear, also the dominant person is supposed to check in with the submissive person to make sure still if things are okay, but none of that was established. So after these messages are sent out, Courtney, the first girl, she goes and she validates. She was like, Effie is telling the truth. Everything that she's saying is true. He says some of the same words to me, called me some of the same pet names. He likes to call everybody, all his girls, kitten and stuff like that. Then they introduce another woman whose name was Paige. Paige came after Courtney, and she was this 22-year-old girl that Armie had met. Gorgeous girl. But all this stuff starts coming out about him into the media, and all the film companies start dropping him. He starts losing jobs because Effie released all these DMs. Courtney is confirming it, things of that nature. They're saying that he has crossed predetermined boundaries that they have set in their relationships. Like, he didn't stop. I saw one thing where they were talking about using a belt around a neck. She didn't feel comfortable with the clasp. He clasped it anyway. And he basically went too far. So Effie, background on Effie, she's this 24-year-old girl. She lives in Europe. She is actually, like I said, she's the one that released the text messages. From this, LAPD, they start an investigation, and a great investigation. Effie hires Gloria Aldred, who has been the lawyer to many women who have accused celebrities of rape and inappropriate behavior. She's like the Me Too lawyer. But soon after, Gloria Aldred, she actually drops Effie because Effie was asked to sign an affidavit, but she didn't do it. So soon afterwards, Gloria Aldred dropped her as a client, and I don't know what happened after that. But Effie, she made a video, a statement to the press, and it's on YouTube, and I'll probably show a clip of it. But basically, she was saying that Armie had raped her for 4 hours, beat her head up against the wall. There were text messages between her and Armie, and in the text messages, Armie says, "Well, for not being ready, you took it like a champ. Ha ha ha." So basically, this kind of shows that he's crossing predetermined boundaries. She replies, "No, I tried to crawl away," and cried hysterically. So it doesn't seem like it was a fun time for Effie. In the documentary, Gloria Aldred basically was talking about, being kinky is not a crime, but raping and crossing one's boundaries is. They introduced this other woman whose name is Lauren, and she goes by the Zen Blonde on TikTok. So Lauren was on it, right? She found all this out. Then she starts doing all this investigation into the Hammer family. And she finds out that Armie Hammer's aunt, Casey, she wrote a book about her whole family. Now, Aunt Casey, Armie Hammer's Aunt Casey, she has not spoken to Armie in about 15 years. She is estranged from all the Hammers. She is just totally ostracized because she telling all the business. She done wrote this book on them, telling all the deepest, darkest secrets, airing all of their dirty laundry. She was like, "No Armie Hammer, no baking soda on this laundry." Did y'all know that Armie Hammer baking soda, it was not named for Armie Hammer because, remember, the grandfather's name is Armie Hammer. But Armie Hammer actually fucking bought the company. He bought the company because he was like, "Hey, my name is Armand and I need this company." So he bought the company. But we're going to get into Armie Hammer because of where his name comes from, because there's a whole bunch of history on that, right? Actually, should I end it here? I'm going to end it here, right? We're going to get into episode 2. I'm going to record it right now. After I edit episode 1 of my breakdown of episode 1, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to record episode 2. It's because it's a whole lot of madness going on. Armie Hammer, I think it's a whole bunch of BDSM and a whole bunch of things that people don't know what they're doing. And there's a whole lot of violation going on. But episode 2 gets into the family story. So we're going to go into the family story about, this was a great place to end. We're going to the family story about Armie Hammer, where the name came from. Armand, where the name came from. We're going to go into Armie Hammer's father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, and his aunt. It's a whole lot of corruption in the whole entire family. And it goes deep, into the U.S. history with politics, and it goes deep all in that royal goddamn family over there in England. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.